Weight management. Boy, is it a deeply relatable and, frankly, a universally frustrating experience for so many of us. If you've ever embarked on any kind of fitness journey, you know intimately that it's a roller coaster. It is filled with extreme emotional highs and then those incredibly challenging, drawn out plateaus. You set a goal, you put in the grueling effort, and you just hope that crossing the finish line brings some sort of lasting peace. But as the data points out, there's actually a really specific hidden behavioral trap deeply embedded right in the middle of this journey. And honestly, understanding this psychological trap, it can completely change how you view your own daily habits, your successes, and especially your setbacks. So in this explainer, we're going to map out exactly what is happening in your brain from day 1 of a diet all the way to day 100. So why is losing weight actually easier than maintaining it? It sounds completely counterintuitive at first, doesn't it? I mean, you'd think that sweating through months of intense cardio or drastically overhauling your entire diet would be the ultimate hurdle, and that simply existing at the finish line would be an absolute breeze. But the reality, as outlined in our source material, is the exact opposite. It's this universal paradox that trips up millions of well-intentioned people every single year. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the weight loss paradox. Section 2, the thrill of pursuit. When you first set out to lose weight, you are essentially initiating a highly stimulating neurobiological event. Your brain literally kicks into a totally different, incredibly fast-paced gear. It's all about being in the active pursuit of better things and attaining concrete goals. And I want you to really notice that word, pursuit. Losing weight feels incredibly engaging precisely because you're in this intensely active state. You're a body in motion, actively moving toward a really exciting future outcome. Just think about the pure excitement of mapping out a brand new running route for the first time, or that initial spark of motivation you get when planning your meals for the week. Every single day feels like it has a distinct, driving purpose because you're constantly chasing a definable mathematical goal. You aren't static, you're hunting. And your biology absolutely rewards this pursuit in a profound way. If you're someone who tracks your progress regularly, you know that something almost magical happens when you step on the scale and see that needle move even just a little bit lower. You get an immediate, powerful sense of reward. Basically, our brain releases a rush of dopamine for us to remember the moment and do it even more. And wow, is that a potent chemical reaction? We're essentially hijacking a deep, evolutionary survival mechanism here. Your brain is literally hardwiring you to enjoy the process of losing weight. It feels amazing to see those numbers go down, and that massive dopamine hit acts as an unstoppable motivator to jump out of bed the next day and do the whole thing all over again. And this brilliantly illustrates the wider behavioral shift that occurs during this time. You see, this initial phase is fundamentally a process of high-energy exploration and experimentation. You're trying out new things, you're learning all about food and exercise, and you're hitting exciting new targets. Even though you're adopting objectively challenging habits, the journey feels entirely fresh. You're in a highly engaging era of self-discovery. Think about the novelty of buying that expensive new workout gear, researching the perfect pair of running shoes, or the thrill of trying out 5 different types of complex kale salads just to see what sticks. Every new recipe, every new workout app you download, and every target you hit makes you feel fantastic. This entire ecosystem of tasks is continuously fueled by those reliable, predictable dopamine spikes. Now, what's really interesting to look at here is the stark contrast between these two phases. The pursuit is an absolute thrill ride. It's fueled by exploration, shiny new targets, and that continuous dopamine rush. This system keeps us incredibly motivated and moving fast, right up until we reach a certain weight point, the maintenance point. And remember, beyond this point, it would actually be unhealthy to lose anymore. But the moment we hit that target weight, bam, we hit a psychological wall. The game abruptly changes from a thrilling pursuit to a heavy burden. The excitement just stops. The dopamine hits from the dropping scale completely disappear. Suddenly, you're faced with common rules, repetitive activities, and an incredibly mundane routine. The finish line isn't a victory lap anymore. It's a treadmill that literally never turns off. Section 3, the burden of maintenance. Let's dig into the mundane reality of this new phase. To actually maintain the fitness level and the weight you worked so incredibly hard to achieve, you now need to perform the exact same activities repetitively. The thrill of the new is completely gone. It becomes entirely about having raw discipline, unyielding consistency, and staying fiercely committed to the promise you made yourself months ago. The once exciting system of dynamic tasks has completely transformed into a static, unglamorous list of repetitive rules. Imagine the reality of waking up to eat that exact same meal prep chicken and doing the exact same workout routine for the 50th day in a row, knowing full well that the number on the scale is not going to change. And that right there is the hardest part. The phase of maintenance is completely devoid of those early obvious biological rewards. You are doing the hard work, but the chemical applause in your brain has gone entirely silent. Because the external validation of the dropping scale is gone, the rewards during maintenance become almost entirely invisible. At this point, we honestly don't see many rewards unless we actively force ourselves to be conscious of them. You literally have to mentally remind yourself of the underlying benefits. Things like the sustained energy you now have throughout the afternoon, or the heightened mental clarity that your healthy lifestyle is offering you. And don't get me wrong, these are amazing, life-altering benefits. But let's be totally honest, they aren't sudden, exhilarating dopamine spikes. They're quiet. They're subtle, baseline improvements. It requires a tremendous amount of active, conscious mental effort to appreciate a steady baseline of health day in and day out, especially when the novelty has entirely worn off. Section 4. Falling into old patterns. So the crucial point is this. Without that constant, powerful shield of dopamine driving us forward, our psychological armor inevitably weakens. When the routine becomes static and the rewards turn invisible, we become highly vulnerable to outside pressures. We start giving in to external events and sudden compulsions. Think about it. A highly stressful Tuesday at the office, followed immediately by someone bringing a giant box of fresh donuts into the break room. When you were in the honeymoon phase of the pursuit, your dopamine-fueled motivation made it incredibly easy to just say no. But in the quiet, unrewarded phase of maintenance, the stress of daily life and those unexpected external events suddenly have a much stronger, almost magnetic pull on our behavior. And you can probably see how this builds into what is known as the relapse reality. It happens in a very predictable, highly understandable sequence. First, people gradually lose motivation simply because the mundane routine just isn't biologically rewarding anymore. Second, without that motivation, they gradually become indisciplined with those daily, repetitive rules. And finally, step 3, they slowly fall right back into the old, unhealthy patterns that they fought so incredibly hard to break. Now, it is absolutely vital to view this sequence with empathy. This is not a personal weakness. It is not a moral failure. It's an entirely expected behavioral pattern driven by the fundamental shift in how our brains process or fail to process ongoing rewards. So here's the ultimate question. If our brains are biologically wired for the thrill of the pursuit, how do we actually learn to find reward in the routine? We've seen today through the source material that losing weight and maintaining it require two completely different psychological skill sets. The pursuit is natural, it's chemical. But maintenance? Maintenance is an active, daily, and often very quiet mental choice. So as you look at your own goals, whether they're related to fitness, your career, or just personal growth, I want you to ask yourself, are you just planning for the dopamine rush of the pursuit, or are you genuinely preparing your mind for the quiet discipline of the routine? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this gives you a powerful new lens through which to view your own behavioral journey. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.